Lecture 4, Hadith, Hanafi Method, and Early Islamic Public Finance. This lesson is part of the course Islamic Banking and the Sabbath Pawn Test. It follows the scholarly preprint closely and presents the argument as research analysis, not as a fatwa and not as personal financial advice. This lecture traces the course's legal method through Hadith, Hanafi reasoning, and early public finance. 3.2. Hadith and Sunnah. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, strongly warned against riba and subtle means of its introduction. According to an authentic hadith, he cursed the one who consumes usury, the one who pays it, and those who record or witness it, saying they are all alike in sin, reported in Sahih Muslim. Although not in Bukhari, this narration is widely accepted in canonical collections. Bukhari does record that riba takers appeared to the Prophet in a vision being tortured. Those you saw in the river of blood were those dealing in usury. Al-Bukhari, Indi, Hadith 1386. The Prophet, peace be upon him, also forbade transactions that could be used as legal tricks to camouflage usury. For example, Bay al-Ina, a sale and buyback deal intended to lend money on interest, and combining two contracts in one transaction were prescribed. A narration in Sunan Abu Dawud states, "Whoever makes two sales in one, let him have the lesser of the two, or else it is riba." This targets arrangements where a lender uses a pair of sale contracts to secure an interest-like profit. Similarly, the Prophet forbade selling gold for gold or similar commodities except in equal amounts and hand-to-hand, to block any usurious advantage in barter. Al-Bukhari, Indi, Hadith 2134. Perhaps most telling is the historical episode during the Prophet's time involving the Thaqif tribe in Taif, as recorded by early historians and in Kitab al-Amal. When the Thaqif considered embracing Islam, they petitioned for special exemptions. They asked, among other things, to keep receiving riba on their loans and to maintain permission for fornication and wine for a transitional period. The Prophet, peace be upon him, uncompromisingly rejected any such legalization of adultery and usury in wine, even at the cost of losing converts. Abu Ubaid, 2007. Only when they dropped these demands did he accept their treaty. Abu Ubaid, 2007. This decisive stance, no matter the societal prevalence of usury or its economic attractiveness, underlines that Islam's prohibition on riba is absolute and not subject to dilution or circumvention. As the Quran says, devour not usury, doubled and multiplied, and classical jurists stress that any usury, doubled or not, is forbidden. Al-Jassas, 1992. The Hadith literature also conveys a maxim later articulated by jurists. Every loan that draws a benefit is riba. In other words, any guaranteed extra benefit to the creditor violates the spirit of a charitable loan, Qard al-Hassan, and is tantamount to usury. 3.3. Hanafi juristic writings. Hanafi scholars, known for their analytical approach to contracts and hile, legal stratagems, have left extensive discussions on avoiding subterfuges that undermine Sharia principles. Imam Abu Yusuf, d. 798 CE, a student of Abu Hanifa, wrote Kitab al-Kharaj at the behest of the Abbasid Caliph, focusing on public finance and governance. In it and related juristic opinions, the Hanafis acknowledged that while form is important to meet contract validity, the intent behind contract cannot be to make halal an outcome that is haram. If a sequence of contracts is executed with the sole intent of delivering what is effectively an interest-bearing loan, Hanafi fiqh would treat it with suspicion or outright forbid it, depending on the evidence of collusion. For instance, classical jurists prohibited a sale with the condition that the buyer resell it back to the original seller at a higher price, a clear ploy to lend on interest known as bay al-ina. While some schools differed on the technicalities, the Hanafi view, as recorded by Al-Jassas and others, is that such tricks are sinful and invalid if proven. Al-Jassas, in his commentary on 2:275, after explaining the prohibition of usury, warns against transactions that are legally sales but practically loans with interest. He draws on the Prophet's traditions to argue that shar'an, legally, acceptable contracts must not be used as a cover for haram outcomes. Al-Jassas, 1992. Usul al-Shashi, a classical primer on Hanafi legal theory, likewise emphasizes that the laws of contracts, muamalat, aim to fulfill certain objectives, masali, and block evils, mafasid. One of its guiding principles is that consideration is given to the objective and outcome of acts, not merely their form or literal wording. Thus, a contract devised to evade an Islamic obligation or prohibition is impermissible due to the principle of sad al-dharai, blocking the means to haram, even if its outward form mimics a permissible transaction. 3.4. Early Islamic Economic Practices. The works of Abu Ubaid al-Qasim, d. 838 CE, in Kitab al-Amal, and other historians shed light on how the early caliphs implemented financial principles without resorting to interest. Abu Ubaid documents numerous instances of public welfare and financial integrity. One striking example is a policy of the second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, demonstrating Islam's commitment to interest-free finance and social justice. After distributing annual stipends from the treasury, Bayt al-Mal, Caliph Umar sometimes found surplus funds. He instructed his governor, "Look for everyone who has a debt incurred without extravagance or sin, and pay it off on his behalf from the treasury." Further, he said, "If you find any unmarried youth who cannot afford marriage, fund his marriage." After these needs were met and funds still remained, he ordered, "Find anyone burdened by the land tax, carriage, due to poor yield or weakness, and lend him what will strengthen him. Do not take it back for a year or two." Abu Ubaid, 2007. These measures, recorded by Abu Ubaid, show an integrated approach to finance. Interest-free loans or grants to relieve debtors and farmers, and proactive social spending, all without charging a penny of interest. It illustrates how the early Islamic state avoided riba, yet maintained economic productivity and equity. Debtors, one of the 8 categories of zakat in Quran 9 hours 60 minutes, were aided, not exploited. This ethos stands in stark contrast to the idea of simply restructuring an interest loan in halal guise. It shows a preference for fundamentally different financial solutions, focusing on risk-sharing and community support. In summary, the literature reveals a consistent message. Riba is not only a legal violation, but a moral and social ill that Islamic law seeks to eliminate. Classical jurists condemned not just riba itself, but also the back doors through which it might re-enter the economy. Cunning stratagems, makharij, that achieve a forbidden end while preserving formal legality were treated with moral opprobrium, if not outright nullification, by early scholars who based their stance on Quranic principles and prophetic precedents, like the Sabbath story and the Prophet's rejection of Thaqif's conditions. This rich scholarly heritage forms the evaluative backdrop for analyzing modern Islamic banking. It urges us to ask not only, is this contract valid in form, but also what economic reality does it create, and is that reality just and halal? As you listen, keep the course question in view. Does the structure change the economic substance, or does it only change the route by which the same result is reached? This completes the lesson. In the next step of the course, we continue applying the same standard: real ownership, real liability, real risk sharing, and transparent economic substance.